Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Mike Barletta back with another tropical update, a little update on Marco, and a big, most of the video is going to be focused on Laura. So if you want to see the video on Laura, skip a little bit ahead. We're just going to be talking about Marco for a couple minutes. But before we do get into that, if you guys could hit that like and subscribe button, that'd mean a ton to me, as well as go follow my Twitter and my Facebook where most of my updates occur. And I know a lot of you guys that watch my videos are from Facebook. They can attest. I post a lot on there, a lot of good updates. So go over there, follow that. You guys did not read the title wrong. I believe Laura is really going to have the chance to be a major hurricane and threaten the Gulf Coast later this week, come Wednesday night into Thursday morning. So let's get right into talking about these systems. This is currently Tropical Storm Marco. I believe it's probably going to get downgraded to a tropical depression. If you could even see, there's a little swirl over there. That's probably where the center of circulation is. Not looking too hot as of right now, and probably won't for the rest of its life cycle. Some southwesterly shear really got into this storm, and the center of circulation is here, blew all of the cloud cover off to the northeast. Not really looking too good. To my surprise, up until last night, the National Hurricane Center believed that this would be a hurricane going into New Orleans or somewhere around that region, and I didn't think so. So I just want to take a quick look at that forecast. Even I was a little too aggressive. I weakened it down to a 60-mile-an-hour tropical storm before making landfall as a 50-mile-an-hour tropical storm, and I don't even know if it's that. It probably already is a tropical depression. So it did follow the cone pretty well, moved up as a Category 1 hurricane, quickly weakened. We're kind of on the northeast side of the cone. We're around there. But just want to give a quick update on Marco. I believe all tropical storm warnings have been canceled, but I think I did a pretty good forecast job on this one. So just like going back reviewing my forecasts, seeing how I did. So getting into Tropical Storm Laura, we are looking kind of beastly as of right now this morning. Earlier this morning, or I should say this afternoon, earlier this morning, there was some northerly shear and there wasn't a whole lot of convection, but now we're getting a nice symmetrical storm, which we haven't seen in quite a while from Laura. We were seeing the northern side being stunted a little bit, and it still is, but definitely trying to wrap some of that convection around the northern side. It looks as though the center is around here, just south of Cuba, only about 12 hours away from going into the Gulf of Mexico, getting into some better conditions where land really is not going to be an issue. But this storm is looking pretty good. It's really got that look to it. As you could see, the past few hours, we've blown up some thunderstorms on the western and southeastern side, even some in the northeastern side. So we're really starting to define that center of circulation. I believe there's a hurricane hunter plane going in there soon. I bet you that it's going to show that this storm has strengthened. I didn't want to wait for it to make this video, but those updates will be on my Twitter and my Facebook. But this storm is looking pretty good right now, and it kind of has that look. So here's my specific forecast for Tropical Storm Laura. By 8 p.m. tonight, making its second landfall on the island of Cuba as a 60-mile-an-hour tropical storm. Well, first, let's get into what it is right now. Currently a tropical storm, winds of 60 miles an hour, with pressure down to 1,000 millibars, still moving pretty quickly west-northwest at 20 miles an hour. We do expect that to slow a little bit, allowing for some more convection to fire and some more tightening of the center. With the storm moving that fast, it is a little difficult to be able to really tighten up, but we are expecting that to slow down a little bit once we get past Cuba. But for the forecast, 8 p.m. tonight, like I said, 60-mile-an-hour tropical storm, no change in intensity, at least. I don't believe so. We may see a little bit of an uptick, but I don't think we're going to be at hurricane force just yet. By 8 a.m. tomorrow, I am expecting a minimal Category 1 hurricane, potentially just below hurricane strength. I know the National Hurricane Center does have this just below hurricane strength at that time, but I'm going just below hurricane strength. 8 p.m. on Tuesday, going to be a little further to the northwest, believing 80-mile-an-hour hurricane, maybe even a little stronger at that point. Then by 8 a.m. on Wednesday, I'm forecasting an upgrade to a Category 2 hurricane with winds of 105 miles an hour. This is where I really think rapid intensification is going to take place. And then by 8 p.m. on Wednesday, I am expecting now a Category 3 major hurricane. This is a minimal major hurricane, the lowest requirement, but regardless, still a major hurricane, 115 miles an hour, before making landfall somewhere around Houston, east of Houston, around the Galveston area. But National Hurricane Center, their track is a little further to the north and east, making landfall right around there, about 75 miles east of my location. As I always say, I am not the National Hurricane Center. Please listen to their forecasts and their watches and warnings. Will never put out an official watch or warning or anything like that. I'm just here to tell you what I think specifically is going to happen with this system. Of course, the National Hurricane Center, a lot more resources at their disposal, a lot more heads put together, definitely a lot smarter than I am. But this, for me, this is what I feel comfortable putting out there. Definitely a sound the alarm type moment. If you are anywhere within this cone, now is really, especially towards the center, just east of the Houston area, somewhere to western Louisiana, you need to start making plans now of how to evacuate if need be. Start boarding up houses and boarding up beach places and getting boats out of the water. Whatever preparations you need to take should be started now. This is a storm that will come at Wednesday night, so this is currently maybe 2.5 days away, and this has the potential to be a very, very dangerous storm, a major hurricane, potentially stronger than even what I am forecasting, but this is as high as I am comfortable going with this storm currently. But a dangerous storm. If you're anywhere within this cone, you really need to be making preparations and understanding how you're going to deal with something like this. So let's get into a bit of the technicalities of this system. This is a microwave imagery basically showing you the core of the storm, and just over the past couple hours we've really started to develop a little core here on the eastern side. Now it is going to have to wrap around the west. Right now we're only really seeing a core develop on the eastern side of this storm, but nonetheless a core is there nonetheless, and that is something that we really didn't want going into the Gulf of Mexico. We were thinking this was going to travel a little further to the north and northeast over Cuba. That unfortunately hasn't happened. This storm has had the chance to take advantage of the environment it's in. Since it dipped south of Cuba, it's taken advantage of the environment that is currently in place, meaning it being over the ocean. So that core is really developing now that it's over the ocean. Going to make a second landfall in Cuba later this evening, which may stunt a little bit of growth, but it really won't be that big of a deal. Only going to be over land for a little bit before re-emerging over the Gulf of Mexico. But this is basically just to show you the core of the system. Now, taking a look at the environment come tomorrow night into Wednesday morning, there really is nothing I can see that is going to slow the intensification of this storm down besides time. And it is going to have a lot of time in a good area. So there's not much out there that is going to stop this storm from strengthening other than its own being. It may go through a couple eye wall replacement cycles, which, as you should know, weakens the system a little bit, but it grows in size. But looking at this current wind shear map for tomorrow, this is for tomorrow night into Wednesday morning, there just is nothing there. There's some shear on the eastern side of the storm, nowhere near the center, and a trough on the western side, also nowhere near the center. This thing is in nearly the perfect spot to intensify. This should be in the textbook. If anything, this shear to the north and west and to the southeast is going to help this storm grow, as we're going to see outflow. It's going to be able to develop some nice outflow channels to the north and south. This is going to be a very, very picturesque storm, in my opinion. It's going to be one that you're going to see in textbooks, potentially. It's going to be a very, very nice storm. With that shear to the north and south, it's going to really develop some nice outflow and more than likely develop an eye. But looking at the moisture, only other thing that might slow this down is dry air. Nope, none to be found. This is going to be in a very moisture-rich environment. A little bit of dry air to the west, but nothing that this storm won't be able to handle, especially once it begins to strengthen. Other than that, there is no dry air around. Some dry air to the northwest, but it won't have to deal with that until after it makes landfall. A little bit of dry air to the east, but nothing too crazy. There's really nothing stopping this from intensifying up until landfall that I'm seeing right now, and that is something that really is not good. it really is a scary situation. I'm making this video in a very serious tone that this is a scary situation. If you do live in these areas that have the potential to be impacted, from western to Louisiana to around Houston, Texas, you really, really need to have a plan on what you are going to do if this does come exactly in your direction, especially if you live along the coast. This is going to be a large storm, potential for a lot of storm surge and flooding. I really just pray for everyone that's in the path of this storm, and I hope you're taking the warning seriously. If you don't normally take warning seriously, please take this one seriously, because this is a real threat, and it's coming from me. This is a legitimate threat for these people that are in the path of this storm. Now, some potential good news, as we saw from that trough before, it may begin to impact the storm right before landfall. It may begin to shear the storm just a little bit right before landfall, and that may be a saving grace that we won't have a rapidly intensifying storm up until landfall. Nothing set in stone yet. This is still 3 days out-ish, a little over 2.5 days out. But this is the one little saving grace I see, is there might be some wind shear to the northwest as it's going to start to get picked up by the trough. Because as you saw from my forecast before, this is going to begin to move inland and then shoot to the east, because it's going to be caught in these trade winds, really, really fast trade winds. If this trough is able to hold off a little bit more, then there's really going to be nothing stopping this thing. But if this trough dips a little further to the southeast, the first thing that'll happen is the track will shift a little further east. Maybe central Louisiana comes a little bit more into play. The second thing that will happen is this will deal with wind shear a little earlier in its life cycle. So with the potential of that happening, we may actually see a little bit of weakening before this storm makes landfall, which would be a great, great thing. A weakening storm upon landfall, always better than a strengthening storm upon landfall. We're really going to have to see about that. It really depends the exact position of this trough. If this trough backs off a little bit, this might come a little further west, towards the Houston area. If it pushes east a little more, it might come a little further east towards central Louisiana. So we're really going to have to keep an eye on exactly what this trough is going to do. And models have ticked east a little bit today, not a whole lot, nothing out of the ordinary, no major moves. But yeah, really going to have to keep an eye on that. But that's the one saving grace that we might have, is some wind shear. As you could see denoted, we're talking 30 to 40 knots of wind shear to the northwest of the system. So it may start to be affected by that a little bit by the time it makes landfall. So we can only hope that that is the case. Now, taking a look at the European Ensemble members, this is just 51 members of an Ensemble of the European model run. Haven't been doing too great this year, but I do like the spread that they're giving us. They are a little further west leaning, so most of the members are from central Texas up until the Texas-Louisiana border. So a little bit further west, they're thinking that trough's going to back off a little more. Potential for this storm to intensify. As you could see, a lot of these members aren't overly strong. Most of them get it to Category 1, Category 2 hurricane at most. But that's no reason to look at that. Though they're very coarse models. They're not going to be able to pick out the fine details. So no reason to look at the intensity, but I'm really looking at the track with these things. You could see Marco over here dying out to the north and east. Really from central Texas all the way to western Louisiana, really needs to pay attention to this system. This really has the potential to be a dangerous cyclone. One that we've seen in past years with storms such as Harvey and storms such as Hurricane Michael, and last year with Hurricane Dorian. There's been no shortage of evidence that meteorologists are very good at predicting hurricanes, and especially big ones, before they come ashore. So please heed our warnings that there is a big storm coming. We may not get everything perfectly correct, but there is a big storm coming. Now, getting into the models, every single model, pretty much almost every single one, gets this to Category 1 hurricane strength, besides a couple models down there in the ditches. Most of the models now get this to Category 2 hurricane strength, about 50%, and then we do have some models getting this to Category 3. Currently, my forecast is right on this line, right at Category 3 hurricane strength. That's where I think we're going to end up. Potential to go higher. Some of the models get this to Category 4. Some get it close to the dreaded Category 5. So we do have some upside, especially since this is going to be over water for a while. It could rapidly intensify rather quickly. So just wanted to point that out to you guys. Most of the models aren't huge on intensifying this like crazy, but that's where the humans come in. That's why we have human forecasters, is to look at the environment and say, do the models make sense? In this case, I do not think that the max for that a lot of these models are showing is going to be a Category 1 hurricane. I don't see it. I just do not think it's going to happen. So that's where the human element comes in. I think the models up here, and this is not fear-mongering, this is based on cold, hard data that's out there, that there is not a lot of wind shear. There's a very moist environment. There's not a whole lot to stop this from strengthening. So please heed the warnings that the National Hurricane Center and the National Weather Service put out. It could save your life. It could save your property. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is after Laura passes and makes the mad dash to the east, we are going to have another system that we're going to have to watch. We are approaching peak hurricane season. The European Ensemble, same members that I just showed you before, are indicating a tropical storm. I believe this one would be named Nana. Tropical storm Nana. If it does occur, these models are not too keen on this one until about a week from now. So we got a long time to watch this, and then another potential wave behind it, but that's a little too far out to really look at. But the model image you're looking at here is 10 days from now. We got a lot to watch over the next few days. So make sure to keep coming back to the channel. Make sure to follow and like my Facebook and my Twitter account at Mike B. Weather. They'll be in the description down below. Make sure to like and subscribe the video. I put a whole lot of effort into these. You guys have an awesome day. If you have any questions or comments, make sure to leave them down below. Stay safe if you're in the path of this storm. I'll be back later with some more content.